Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. You are watching a very special session of Agenda AWANI. I am right here in Kuching at the seats of power of the executive of Sarawak. I'm here, I'm very honoured to be with the Right Honourable Datuk Pandigi Dr. Abang Haji Abdul Rahman Zohari. And I would like to go straight to the point because I think this is the most important, momentous, historical moment in the evolution of the federal concept of Malaysia in relation to the state. Last night at the launching of Petroleum Sarawak, or better known as Petros, you gave a very remarkable speech in the instance of where Sarawak stand in the eyes of the state of Sarawak in relation to the rights of its own resources. And this is an issue that has gone back decades, right back to the Malaysian Agreement, 1963. Before this, in the media, the talk has always been about the percentage or quantum of oil and petroleum royalty. 5% is what has been in practice. 20% has been the amount being discussed even at the State Assembly, and resolutions were passed to us for that. But last night, you just changed the whole game. You just moved to a new green field, and you say, from the historical documents, from the visits made by the state government to London, by consultations to the legal and historical expert, according to the ordinance since the colonial days. And you have the 1950s, and you have every data and facts, according to your presentation, that says that from today onwards, the understanding of the state government and the people of Sarawak is, Sarawak has its own rights to its own resources, whether it's subsea, whether it's at the bottom of the ocean, under the territory of Sarawak, or on land. So I'm just going to ask your kindness to go a little bit back to last night. What does this mean to Sarawak and to Malaysia? Because this is no longer a discussion about percentage. This is a game changer for the evolution of the concept of federal and state.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for this interview. And last night was a very historical occasion for me to launch Petros, so that Sarawak can play a very active role in the development of hydrocarbon in Sarawak itself. Actually, what happened was, I looked through our federal constitution, and in the 9th schedule of our constitution, it was very clear that under the state list, particularly land 2C, we have the right to issue permit, leases, and licenses if people were to mine our natural resources. Yes. And that is stated clearly in our state list. When you go to the federal list, the development of oil fields, mineral resources is under federal list, under item 8, J.
8J.
But it says there, subject to item 2C of the state list.
Yes.
Then you can start your work to develop oil field. Mm-hmm. It is very clear there that you need a license and you need the permit from the state government.
Yeah.
As it is, this provision has not been implemented in our oil and gas industry. And therefore, it is only right for us to comply to the provision of our constitution, which is the supreme law of the federation.
Yeah.
And upon that provision, I have decided that any activity in our mineral resources, including oil and gas, they must get permission from the state of Sarawak. Thus, what happened now is we have the regulatory control over the development of our mineral resources, including oil and gas. That is very clear in the Constitution. And as you know, under Article 4 of our federal Constitution, any other laws that is inconsistent with the Constitution is void. So that is my stand.
That is under Schedule 9
Yes.
of our federal constitution. Article 2 of our federal constitution says that if any rights provided by the constitution were to change in subject in relation to state.
Article 4.
Article 4. Article 4 is you cannot transgress any
Yes.
other article. But Article 2 said if it was to be changed, it needs the state legislative assembly to pass a motion and law to approve it.
That is as far as the boundaries are concerned. Our boundaries, when we formed Malaysia together, the Federation of Malaya at the time, North Borneo and Singapore. Our boundary was 12 nautical miles, and it is still 12 nautical miles. It cannot be changed, as you rightly say, under Article 2, unless it is agreed by the state legislature and the Conference of Rulers.
Muhammad, that's the law. There's also the practice. Since 1963, in the perspective of many, maybe that has not really been exercised to the full right. And if I look at some leaders in Sarawak and their social media, the way they put it is, finally we've gotten back the rights. And at the end of your speech last night, you said this is your promise to the people of Sarawak, that you'll be asking for rights inadvertently eroded or taken away, and now the devolution of power from center back to the state. But in the family, there's also the living together. And Sarawak has been living together with the rest of the Federation since 1963. So some practices have been practiced, not to what has been said, but to other acts like the Petroleum Development Act of 1974. And there's also the other act that limits the boundary and claims of the state to the 3 nautical miles. So now, upon your announcement last night, how would you handle the implied meaning of 1974 PDA and also the limitation by law, I think of 2012, to the 3 nautical miles?
First of all, you must remember that there is a perception that our Malaysian Agreement 63, where some points are incorporated into our federal constitution, has not been observed well. That is a perception. And therefore, I want to rectify that perception. And I'm very fortunate that we have the Prime Minister, who is very sensitive on the terms of our agreement and also our constitution. And he said openly that any right that is advantageously eroded, sengaja atau tidak sengaja, that is his word, will be given back. And based on that particular view by our Prime Minister, so what I do is I look at our powers that have been sengaja atau tidak sengaja that have been already eroded. And this particular oil and gas issue has been there all the time. And I believe that not necessarily we can get benefit only from royalty, but we must be an active player in that particular industry. That's why when I took over as Chief Minister, I formed Petros with the aim of getting Sarawak through Petros to participate actively in this particular sector. And I must emphasize here that when we have that particular provision in the Constitution, everybody has to observe that particular provision in the Constitution. Of course, we work together with the federal government. It doesn't mean that we have to surrender our rights.
Yeah.
There must be equitable participation between the federal and the state government. And the Prime Minister is very willing to share that responsibility. And for us in Sarawak, we need a lot of revenue to develop the state.
Yes.
The state is as big as the whole of Peninsular Malaysia. You just imagine if we were to be a developed state, the infrastructure cost is enormous.
Yeah.
And after 55 years of independence, we still got villages and longhouses that can't even get pipe water. Meaning, what I do is, we try to get, we cannot rely on the federal government alone, but to get extra revenue so as we are able to implement the basic infrastructure for Sarawak because of the size itself. You know, even kampung near Kuching in Simponjan, they haven't got pipe water throughout the year. And this is something that we have to do. We have to provide. This is only water. What about the other infrastructure such as road, rural road? We cannot rely on KL alone. But if we have the rights to increase our revenue, why not? We use that right. And that money is meant for Sarawak itself, for the people. And against that sort of background, I feel it is only fair that we must try to explore additional revenues that where we can really develop Sarawak as a modern state in Malaysia.
How would you like the rest of Malaysia to see your announcement? Because the objectives are very clear. To you, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not about a power equation. This is not about the money for money's sake, but this is the much needed empowerment catalyst for the increased quality of life for all the people of Sarawak using its own resources ordained by what has been given through land and sea in Sarawak. However, having been a politician for decades, I'm sure you are very, very close to the heartbeat of the politics of the nation, even in the peninsula. So how would you appeal for the rest of Malaysia to look at your announcement last night, not to go into the extreme end of the power relations, but look at the empowerment of finally bringing Sarawak on par, if not better, than the quality of life that other Malaysians has been enjoying since 1963.
Right. You see, hydrocarbon industry has been in Sarawak for the past, since 1910.
Yes.
As I said last night, commissioned on the 22nd December 1910. So we have been doing quite well. And a lot of our Sarawakians were sent overseas to study under Shell scholarship. So Shell has been doing its corporate responsibility on that. And one of the beneficiaries is our Tun Taib and our former Deputy Chief Minister. They were all Shell scholars.
Yes.
And then after the introduction of 1974 PDA, the late Tun Rahman, together with Tunku Ghazali and Tun Razak, they have this agreement that, okay, let Petronas does the job. But in return, Petronas must also develop from the revenue it has to the state. So over the years, you can see what has happened. Though Petronas has got a lot of revenue, but apparently our perception is that concentration is more on the other project that they have made, while the state is still struggling to get money to develop our infrastructure. Fair enough, it has to be shared throughout the country, but there must be equitable allocation of resources to Sarawak. Mind you, Sarawakian are looking at the Twin Towers.
Yes.
And Sarawakian is also looking at all the bailout of the federal government.
Okay.
And Sarawakian can think part of the money must come from Petronas, who could contribute to the coffers. And therefore, we want to align that perception that Petronas is equitable and they must help us to develop Sarawak. Yes, they have their plan in Bintulu. That is the investment, and we have certain equity, about 10%. But to us, Sarawakian companies must also be involved in the downstream as well as the upstream.
Correct.
And therefore, what should be done is there must be equitable job to be given to Sarawak companies as well as what we call Petronas itself to develop hydrocarbon.
Is there a consensus from Sarawak Member of Parliament with the understanding of the announcement to bring more awareness to the peninsular side of Malaysia, especially in the sessions in Parliament and Dewan Rakyat, because there must be explanation, would you think, to the impact it has on the Continental Shelf Act of 1966, the PDA 74, and also the Territorial Sea Act of 2012. Must there be, after this, a movement, or at least an initiative, to really reconcile all these things together?
No, we are very fortunate. We are in Barisan Nasional. My party is a Sarawak-based party. What we can do is, if there are any apprehension on this, we can discuss among the leaders in Barisan Nasional. But for us in Sarawak, we say that, okay, that is our provision, that is our what we call right in the Constitution. Why not we work together based on the Constitution? That's why I say Petros must work alongside Petronas. It doesn't mean that we exclude Petronas. But then Petronas must acknowledge the fact that it is our right for them to align to our written laws. In other words, they just can't appoint any contractor themselves.
Okay.
They must get their contractors or subcontractors who are registered with us in order to get the permit to be involved in the oil and gas industry. Previously, what happened is we don't even have a say in the question of participation of our private sector. You know, Brokelet Yard has been there, but then we can see other companies from Semenanjung, Malaysia only being considered. So I think it's just a matter of restructuring, that's all. It's not a question of power against power.
Does that mean that in the 1958 Sarawak Oil Mining Ordinance, there will be new bills to be tabled in the next sitting of the DUN?
Yes.
And what would it incorporate? Because if I understand what you said last night, right, from July 2018, licenses, leases, permits for any company, not just Petronas, Shell or Murphy or whoever it is, they must go through the state approval and state mechanism. So what new mechanism would you put into the new bill going to be tabled and of course approved in the next DUN sitting?
Until the bill is tabled, then I can tell you. I'm sorry, I cannot tell you.
No, I understand. You're a very astute leader and politician. I only have a few minutes left. So You mentioned the key point to your announcement to go with all the historical facts and the formation of Petros. The fact that the Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, and you thank him again and again in your speech last night,
Yes.
which has agreed for the devolution of power. Have you mentioned this announcement specifically with Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, and what did he say to this?
No,
last night?
when he was in Kuching officiating our PBB conference, I did mention to the Prime Minister that we have formed a high-level committee, and he responded positively to that committee, and he did mention that whatever rights sengaja atau tidak sengaja yang telah diambil oleh kerajaan pusat akan diberi balik kepada Sarawak. And I found this provision during that period. Apparently, it was overlooked.
Okay.
So, because it's fine print at the back. So, with this, I just exercised the mandate given by my party, PBB, grassroots, during the convention, and also the support given by the component parties for me to execute the right that have been eroded. That's all.
So, in your perspective, this is in accordance with the spirit of Barisan Nasional?
Barisan Nasional.
Yeah. How have the other leaders, have they contacted you, congratulated you? Or?
Well, the Sarawak leaders are all behind me because I have discussed it in the cabinet.
The non-Sarawak BN leaders?
That one I would know.
Okay. You're waiting for the
I
reaction.
don't know, I know.
Okay.
I do not want to interfere with their politics.
Going forward, you are a very astute politician, as I said before. You've been in politics for decades, and it's a very complex equation when the scenario of Malaysia is very, very plural and diverse by geography, by ethnicity, we alluded to that. And this announcement coming at a time when the whole psyche of the nation is awaiting the general election 14. How would you say the timing of your announcement in correlation to the coming general election?
No, I haven't considered the general election timing because I do not know when is the general election in the first place. So what I'm doing is just to continue what the Sarakian want us to do. The mandate given to Tok Nan, and I am a collective member of Tok Nan's team, and mandate given during the last state election, one of which is about our MA63 and our right, and Tok Nan has left us. I just continue, and based on whatever information or rights that that we know, I just pursue that. That's all.
I can concur with my exclusive interview with the late Tok Nan. He said the basis of what you're saying now. And I would like to end this to give context to those who did not attend last night or the other Malaysians that had not seen. We started with Negaraku, and then there was the Sarawak song. And you ended by saying that, inshallah, under the BN government of Malaysia, Sarawak and Malaysia will continue to be prosperous. So I'm giving you the final chance in this interview to speak to the people of Malaysia. Maybe Sarawakian have heard about this. Some other Malaysians might not really have been looking at it. What is your hope and aspiration for Petros, for Sarawak, and for Malaysia going forward? Because you repeatedly say that this is good for both the state and the country.
Well, the first thing is Malaysia is a federation. In a federation, you got members of that particular federation. It's just like a family. If the members of the family are happy, then the whole family will be happy. But if you have a fragmented member in your family, you are bound to have problems. And based on that premise, I think if Sarawak is happy, Sabah is happy, the other states are happy, surely Malaysia will be a happy nation, and we can move forward together. And that's the spirit.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Thank
for the formation of Petros and the vision to lead the state and Malaysia to a new height for all. this is a landmark and historic moment in the evolution of Malaysia as a federal concept. The whole entirety, implication, legal, the precedent, the understanding of our constitution will now need to be fully aware and exercised in the minds of all its citizens. Thank you to Yang Amat Berhormat for granting us this exclusive interview, and I'll be seeing you in another episode of Agenda Awani very soon. Goodbye.